The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
We are now about to witness the truth.
it's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Tuesday, July 11th, 2017, and I do believe I can get some type of image here. Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am, as you can tell, if you're watching, you can tell we're still in production mode, setup mode, but I wanted to at least get some type of image for you all to see. This is sort of behind the scenes, but I wanted to at least share this with you. That's number one. Number two, thanks for all of our patrons, all of our supporters who make the Benjamin Dixon Show possible. Without you, it's not possible. So we want to give a special thank you to everyone who is a patron and a supporter. Those of you who just share the content, if you just share it, watch it, listen, subscribe, all of that, we definitely appreciate it. Despite my headline not being accurate because I completely forgot to reset the headline, this has been a rather eventful day with President Donald Trump, particularly with the help of his son, Donald Trump Jr. Let's start here. I think anyone who has listened to me for any amount of a time understands clearly that I always allowed for the possibility of some type of Russian collusion, but I also was patient for evidence. Yeah, I was willing to be patient to get evidence because I thought that was just in good form, right? As people who consider ourselves to be journalists, people who consider ourselves to be, how do we self-describe ourselves? It doesn't matter how we self-describe ourselves. We have the responsibility to try to be as ethical in our reporting as possible. And so it was not asking too much for us to be patient for some type of evidence, right? I don't think that that's unreasonable. But now evidence has come out. Now, specifically what that evidence speaks to, well, that is a question, right? What does that evidence actually speak to? We'll see. Collusion, direct collusion. Is it a smoking gun for collusion? Well, at this point, it's just a matter of the law, right? We're really at the point of deciding, of a court deciding if this constitutes, not really a court, but right, the Bob Mueller's investigation, whether or not this is a form of collusion. It most certainly seems like a form of solicitation that is solicitation specifically that is illegal according to campaign finance law. That's number one. I mean, I think that's most important. I think that's because in the emails, and hopefully you know what I'm talking about, but I have to allow for the possibility that you haven't seen the news yet and you want me to inform you. That being said, it really is, or really has been, an amazing day where Donald Trump Jr. thought that he was going to exonerate himself in some fashion, and he ended up implicating himself with a chain of emails, and in that chain of emails where he thought he was sharing with America the fact that this Russia thing, and the email thing, particularly with the New York Times, was a big nothing burger. But in reality, he ended up exposing just how deep, one, how stupid he is. Can I take a step back? Donald Trump Jr. is an idiot who, either he is an idiot or his attorney is an idiot, and probably both. But why would you release, besides the fact that the New York Times had it, why would you voluntarily release damning information? I mean, if it was me and somebody was essentially, promising to out me and say that I have some information on you, I'm going to make them work for it. Put it out. You know, you're not gonna cause me. But Donald Trump Jr. felt that it was in his best interest, and I think he actually believed that. Yes, thank you. He actually believed that this was somehow going to help his case, when in reality, this hurt him in a very significant fashion. Okay, so the email chain that he shared today was an email chain between he and Rob Goldstone rather. And this was an attempt by Rod Goldstone to set up a meeting between Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, and Manafort with a Russian attorney, an attorney connected with the Russian government. And expressly in the emails, Rod Goldstone, whatever his name is, made it clear that this is information of the highest order coming from the Russian government, and that it is in connection with the Russian government attempting to support the Trump campaign. I mean, damn. There was no way possible that that the Trumps could misconstrue what was being said and suggested in the email. Now, people are trying to say that this somehow that because he had the meeting, and subsequently or allegedly nothing came of the meeting, they're trying to say that, oh, well, this can't be collusion. It can't be collusion because this woman was a nobody and she didn't really have information on Hillary Clinton like the original email stated. Okay, let's play this scenario out. Let's say that the FBI sets up a sting, and they really don't have any intention of arresting, of actually buying, rather. They don't really have any intention of actually buying this stolen product that you're being investigated for, but you come to them because they expressed their interest. And because they expressed their interest, you are now soliciting someone to buy this thing from you. So are they not going to arrest you simply because they didn't truly intend to purchase this stolen item? And I don't know if that makes the analogy actually makes it any clearer, but the problem is that the problem for Trump, rather, is that it doesn't matter whether this Russian attorney had any intention of really divulging damaging information on Hillary Clinton to constitute collusion, number one. But also it doesn't matter because Donald Trump Jr. went in with the expectation that he was going to get some damning information from the Trump campaign, or from Russia, from the Russian government, from an attorney directly connected with the Russian government, and he was expressly told that this is an investigation, or rather, this is information from the government on behalf of the government's attempt to help the Trump campaign. And now, to come full circle, whether or not this is collusion is a legal question. Everyone's speculating at this point, unless you're an attorney, and unless you've tried this type of trial before, you're speculating. And it's a legal question whether or not it constitutes actual collusion. It seems to be a clear-cut case of solicitation based on solicitation of a foreign government for assistance in an election based on FEC rules, which makes that illegal. Whether or not he got anything, he actively solicited information from a foreign government, which in many ways is an in-kind contribution to your campaign. And so there's a strong possibility that if nothing else, whether this meets the legal definition of collusion, there's a strong possibility that this actually is going to be illegal based on campaign finance reform. I mean, I waited for the Clinton email scandal. I didn't really discuss that until there was clear evidence that there was meat on the bones. So I was patient there, and I was patient with the Russia emails or the Russian investigation because I wanted to find actual evidence that would support anything. And we're talking about two different things here. Right, we are talking about collusion versus something, and this something probably is an FEC violation. That probably is going to be the place where they stick it to Donald Trump Jr. But we were waiting for evidence of something. And what we got today was clear evidence that the Trump campaign was fully aware that they were being assisted by the Russian government to help them win this campaign against Hillary Clinton. Now, let's address the people who don't believe that this is anything, right? There are some people who don't believe that this is anything. They'll never believe it's anything because even though they said they were waiting for evidence, the reality of it is that they were just never going to believe it anyway. But there's some people who are saying, well, this is not, and this is actually Michael Tracy of the Young Turks, because I'm using his quote directly. I might as well say his name. He stated that, well, this is not evidence of some grand master plot of collusion with Russia and Vladimir Putin sitting there pulling the chains. No, it's not. Okay, I got some people in the YouTube saying that Donald Trump Jr. didn't break any laws. I want to see your law degree. Show me your fucking law degree, because it is a legal question at this point. It's look up solicitation underneath the federal the election commission, and you will see that it is illegal. I'm going to get back to my other point, but I want to address this question, this comment directly. It is illegal for campaigns to solicit assistance from foreign governments. Now, this email 100% looks like that's the case. And so it is a legal question, not something that you could just dismiss because you don't like the DNC. Get the entire hell out of here. What's wrong with you people? It's not something that you could dismiss just because you don't like Hillary Clinton. I don't like Hillary Clinton. Hell, I've been waiting on evidence the entire time. But what we have here is an admission of guilt from Donald Trump Jr. And you got people saying, oh, he did nothing wrong. Man, if you at this point still think that he did absolutely nothing wrong and everything is copacetic and everything is up and up, then you have been drinking the Kool-Aid. You have been so propagandized around this election that you can't even bring yourself to admit that this email from Donald Trump Jr., this email chain, constitutes a possible illegal activity. Now, I'm not convicting him because I'm not a goddamn lawyer. I can't tell you. I can't tell you because I'm not a lawyer. But what I can tell you is that based on my research and based on the research of plenty of other journalists, he is treading a fine line of actually having committed an illegal act, particularly around solicitation from a foreign agency, from a foreign government. Miss me with all this. Oh, yeah, but Hillary. Hillary Clinton's not the president. Hillary Clinton, let me unplug this before I destroy it. Hillary Clinton's not the president. Hillary Clinton is not the one who had the relationship with the Russians. This is not about Hillary. Even if Hillary Clinton is 100% guilty of soliciting information from the Ukrainian government by proxy, of going to the Ukrainian consulate or embassy, and so the campaigns looking for, that's what's being floated around. They're saying, oh, this can't possibly be illegal, because if this was illegal, then Hillary Clinton did it too, and this is Hillary Clinton, she's in trouble, so let's talk about Hillary Clinton. Okay. If you take the time to talk about Hillary Clinton and point out that Hillary Clinton's campaign did something similar and something that was illegal, then you have just conceded the fact that what Donald Trump Jr. did was illegal. Now, who's in office, who's in power, and who do you think is going to get caught up first? See, today, and I tweeted this on Twitter, today is going to weed out the people who were genuinely skeptical and waiting on evidence before they jumped the gun, and people who were never going to believe the evidence in the first place. That's what people who were never going to believe the evidence no matter what. And there are people who still now are looking at this email chain and saying, oh, there's nothing there. I'm sorry. All right. Anyway, I'm actually reading your comments. I'm actually reading your comments, so I don't have time for Marilyn. I'm going to have to just mute her momentarily so that I can see other people's comments. But no time for stupid in here. Marilyn can come back after after I get done with this conversation. She's just trolling the comment section right now. All right. So that's it. Now, again, does this go to Donald Trump? I don't know. I don't see how it's possible. I'm going to get back to Michael Tracy. Don't trust me. I didn't forget. I don't see how it's possible that Paul Manafort, Jared Kushner, and his son, Donald Trump Jr., all knew about this meeting in, June 9th of 2016, all knew about this meeting, and Donald Trump didn't know. But that's not something that we can answer. That's something Bob Mueller is going to have to answer. That's number one. Number two, whether or not, even if he knew about it, whether or not Donald Trump knowing about that actually constitutes an impeachable offense, that's actually, at this point, I'm actually going to speculate on that. I think that's slim to none. I think we're in the slim to none range, whether or not Donald Trump knew enough about this and what he knew constituted an impeachable offense. So my money is on the fact that actually that Donald Trump Jr. is falling on his sword in order to protect his dad. Any good son would do that, right? All right. So this is the most, I think this is, how long have I been talking about it? I know I started about 10 minutes, 16 minutes. This is the most you've heard me talk about the Russia investigation in the entire last year, 16 minutes. 16 minutes because I viewed it through the lens of skepticism, but I viewed it through the lens of skepticism not because I didn't want to believe it, not because I felt like I had to tacitly oppose that narrative because that narrative somehow supported the Democratic Party, and I hate the Democratic Party so much that I couldn't possibly support any narrative that would underscore and support the Democratic Party. No, I waited for evidence because, shit, that's just what I do. You know how many stories I go across? You know how many stories of police brutality I go across every single day, and I refuse to even tweet about it until I get more evidence. You know why? Because I like what I do. That's why. So 16 minutes is the longest you've ever heard. 16 minutes and 52 seconds is the longest that you've ever heard me talk about this. Why? Because now we actually have evidence. And Donald Trump Jr. is so dumb that he is actually, God forbid, he's actually making some of the dumbest people on the neoliberal center sound like they might know what they were talking about. I mean, think about these people. Think about these people who've been saying the most ridiculous thing. They really make it sound like, I mean, shit, Donald Trump Jr. I mean, I don't mind you going to jail, but I don't need you to validate Louisa Minch. Like, for the love of God, can we not go that far? Could they just stop long enough to get in trouble, but not validate these idiots on the neoliberal center, like Louisa Minch and the other dude who said it's game time for some game theory? Can we please just avoid that? Because I'm not interested in those people being right, because I don't care if they're right. They're fucking insane. So anyway, I was doing everything I could to get phone lines today. I'm sorry. Before I move on, back to Michael Tracy's tweet. And he was talking about the fact that this doesn't prove any grand conspiracy. Well, that's the thing. That's a convenient straw man. There's absolutely no need to prove a grand conspiracy. If he simply broke an FEC law, then he's going to have to pay the consequences, period. And besides that simplistic look at the law, it's clear that everything that Donald Trump Jr. said, denying any connection. I mean, first they denied even meeting with anyone, knowing anyone. Then Ambassador Kislyak, Sergei Kislyak, came out and said, well, I've had meetings with him. And then all of a sudden now, from Jeff Sessions down to Jared Kushner, had to admit to meeting with Russians. And then it changed and said, well, that's the only guy we met with, nobody else. And then it changed to actually, well, so you did meet with someone. And then they changed the subject of what they met about. And we really weren't meeting about anything but adoption. And then it comes out that actually, no, you were meeting with them about getting damning information on the Clinton email. I mean, at some point, we just have to slow the narrative down and say, he was dumb enough to release this. Let's be dumb enough to at least look at the information and evaluate it on its merits. That's all. And evaluating on its merits brings us to the conclusion that this is a legal question. It's a question that that Bob Mueller and his investigative team is going to have to answer. All right, let me go back, and I want to unmute Marilyn just so I can be true to my word. But you can weigh in on the discussion. I'm going to check you out on Facebook as well. I'm going to check you out on YouTube and on Twitter, and I want your input. I still want you to give your comments, even if it's ridiculous. The only thing I don't want is a lot of trolling, because I'm actually reading these comments myself, and I don't have time for people to continuously piss me off. So leave your comments and questions on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, and let's discuss it. Do you buy this evidence that came directly from Trump Jr.? Do you buy it? Do you believe it? Do you think that it's going to lead to anything? I don't, because the Republican Party is still in power, and whether or not they can, they still have the ability to insulate Donald Trump. But anyway, you got my point of view. I want your point of view. We'll have our phone lines back up tomorrow. We were almost there. And let's move on to the next to another story. So they confirmed today, they being Reuters, confirmed through a British human rights organization that al-Baghdadi, Bakr al-Baghdadi, was killed. And he was killed in a Russian strike outside of the Syrian city of Raqqa. He was killed with along with several other ISIS commanders. Now, this took place back in June, and we actually reported on it on the show back in June, and we reported on it because it was interesting that there was nothing. There was complete silence from the Pentagon. And the reason there was silence from the Pentagon is because, of course, they don't want to credit Russia with accomplishing something that the Pentagon has been trying to accomplish since the creation of ISIS, and that is the killing of Baghdadi. And so Baghdadi has been confirmed killed independently. The Pentagon and the White House still has not come out and said anything about it. But Donald Trump has not come out and said that they can independently verify it. So there's no independent confirmation from the Pentagon or from any of the agencies in Washington, D.C. But Donald Trump did tweet this morning after Reuters released it that that there was great news on ISIS. In fact, he said good news on ISIS. And cool, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, except for the fact that I have the strange feeling that Donald Trump got his information on the death of Baghdadi, not from his intelligence officials, not from a special note handed to him by a Secret Service agent, not from Jim Mattis, but from Twitter. And I talked about this a little bit this morning on the morning analysis for bonus for patrons. And if you want to become a patron, go to the BPD, go to patreon.com/the BPD show. I talked about it momentarily this morning because that's actually scary, right? We could joke about a lot of things about how we want Donald Trump to go to jail or whatever you want Donald Trump. You want him to fail on his agenda. But one particular area where unless we have a viable solution and a transition plan, one area that's very important for Donald Trump not to be an abject failure, and that's on foreign policy. And for him to be the type of president that the intelligence community say they cannot trust, for him to be the type of commander-in-chief who does not pay attention to his daily briefings, that puts us in a real precarious position, such that we have a president who finds out his news the same time I find out my news, and the same way I find out my news. Somebody needs to intervene here, man. If Trump is not impeached and he's still the president, then we actually need a functioning president that, if he wants to present policies to implement a transition from American hegemony post-World War II, right? If we want to critique and criticize American hegemony and get a transition plan into another form of global order that can provide more stability than what we had. In other words, if we're going to try to destroy America's influence and the president is going to sign off on that, that's fine. But you know what? Unless he has a plan to actually do that, we don't need him sitting on the John in the morning, reading Twitter, finding out major geopolitical news. Serious. People really are in this weird place, leftists in particular, where we'll accept this feckless undermining of the post-World War II order, American hegemony, because we have very valid critiques of it. But at the same time, are we just going to abdicate our responsibility for the world order that we created and just leave an empty void where stability, the modicum of stability that we have, actually flounders, and now we have chaos, all because we didn't like America. And I have to bring it up in this context because I'm constantly inundated by progressives, by leftists who are like, who cares? Who cares about the stability? Who cares about, because there's not stability everywhere. And I get it, right? I don't think anyone has a more robust critique, academic critique, or just passion critique of the American empire, right? I use hegemony to be coy, but it's American empire. Nobody has a better critique than me, but damn it, like, I do want us to discuss the implications of American hegemony, but I don't want us to discuss it in the context of Donald Trump destroying it because he wasn't fucking paying attention to the news. Like, if we're going to tear something, if you tear a building down, can we not tear it down in order instead of demolishing it with nothing to replace it? And then, as that Australian reporter says, that void will be filled by authoritarian regimes. Anyway, I know that's kind of a big chunk of esoteric and philosophical nuance. I get it, but that's really one of the number one critiques that I get whenever I discuss Donald Trump's fecklessness on foreign policy. And it really just like weighed down on me this morning when I realized Donald Trump is finding out about Baghdadi the same time I was. The same way I was. You roll over, you kiss your gal, and you get on Twitter. Not this morning because I'm out of town. I'm by myself, so I didn't roll over and kiss any girl. But you get the point. You get the point. He should not be getting his information the same way a podcaster does. But because he's the Fox News, he's the quintessential Fox News viewer who gets and feels as though he gets sufficient information from Fox News and can get a holistic look at the world through Fox News and Twitter. And he's attempting, and this is the sobering reality, man. We have a country that is being led by whatever is said on Fox News. Like Donald Trump's not even the president. Fox News is the president because that's where he gets his information, and that's the information from which he makes decisions. And if that's not disturbing enough, understand what Fox News represents. Understand what Breitbart represents. And the fact that all of these organizations represent white supremacy in its purest form. Represent the status quo, the patriarchy. It represents everything that progressives fight against. And so it should bother every single one of us that the president of the United States, instead of getting information from the infrastructure that, yes, we should critique, but in reality, it's here and we need to deal with it. Instead of getting information from these institutions, he's getting information from Twitter and Fox News. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you other than the fact that is, and this is how you get legislation. This is how you get recommendations for these policies where now we don't focus on any form of white terrorism in America, right? Despite all of the evidence that shows you that white terrorism is a greater threat to anyone else in this country, to everyone in this country, greater than any brown terrorism or Islamic terrorism. Right? But we get policies from the Trump administration that sees that it only makes sense to them that he would no longer pay attention to white terrorism and put all of the energy of the Homeland Security into focusing and fighting only Islamic terrorism. That's how you get those policies. That's how you get the policies where they're trying to roll back LGBTQ rights and advances. You get policies where they're trying to roll back a woman's right to choose. That's how you get policies that's how you get justices like Stephen Gorsuch. Not Gorsuch. What's the new guy's name? Hey, whatever the new guy's name. It might be Gorsuch. But he gets this, his entire worldview is shaped by Fox News, and he gets his information the same time you or me get it. We get it. And that's where we are, man. That's where we are. And that's our president. I'm more informed. I said it this morning. I'm going to say it again. Ben Dixon 2020. Who's my running mate? Because shit, I mean, my slogan is, why the hell not? Why the hell not? I'm smarter than your guy. Why the hell not? I mean, I know we have lowered the bar to the point where, you know, you tell kids when they're growing up, one day you could be the president of the United States. I think we've gone a little too far. I think we've gone a little bit too far. I mean, we really have lowered to the bar to the point where we have a president who, I mean, I don't even have to describe him anymore. So shit, Ben Dixon 2020. I'm running with Kyle Kalinske, Secular Talk. Ben Dixon and Kyle Kalinske, Secular Talk 2020. Actually, I want an intersectional. I want an intersectional candidacy. So I need a woman or a trans woman or LGBT, someone from the LGBTQ community. Give me an intersectional ticket. Dixon and I don't know. I'm trying to think someone politically. Who knows? I don't know. We'll think about it. But hell, at this point, you run. Me and old Marilyn from the chat room, we're going to run 2020. Ben and the fungus growing on the outside of this studio, we're going to run, and I guarantee you the average IQ of my ticket is going to be twice that of anybody running with Donald Trump, period. All right, let me leave him alone. Leave your comments in the comment section. I'm not going to read that comment, Aubrey, but if anybody wants to go back to the chat room and read Aubrey's comment, it's hilarious to me. All right, so I'm reading another article in Al Jazeera, and the article in Al Jazeera talks about the uptick in violence, in white supremacist violence since the election of Donald Trump. And it focused on a conversation by Texas A&M University professor of philosophy, a black man. He was discussing the fact that that he is receiving death threats against him and his family because he talked about the usage of violence and weapons in the course of black liberation. In other words, because he talked about the historical context of violence being used as a means of accomplishing the liberation for black people, he now started receiving death threats. He wasn't talking about using current contemporary violence. He was talking about, the violence throughout, slavery, and post-slavery and Jim Crow. But simply talking about it led him to getting death threats. And they were talking about the uptick since the election of Donald Trump, and now they're in a place where we've seen almost 1,100, almost 1,200 instances of hate crimes, or what they call a bias incidents. And because of those bias incidents, because of the large uptick, it represents the single greatest increase for that time period. And out of those 1,100, almost 1,200 cases, nearly 400 of those cases took place on college campuses. And those incidents are used as a means of terrifying black and brown people from opposing any form of white supremacy. And what jumps out to me first and foremost in this conversation are all of those people who are quick to fix their mouths in support of conservative, right-leaning, bigoted, neo-Nazis, fascists, and their right to have free speech, and usually in opposition towards politically correct or people who want safe spaces. How many people do we see who regularly come to the defense of Nazis, but yet not a single one of them have we heard say a damn thing about the number of hate crimes that are being committed on college campuses since the election of Donald Trump? See, that's when you expose the underlying bigotry, the underlying biases that are conveniently whisked away or explained away with a certain type of liberalism. This is how you can get the Emmanuel Macron speech yesterday and people rationalize it away as not really being racism. You do that by getting people who can look and defend a Nazi but then say nothing when it comes down to defending marginalized communities. Because in their minds, they honestly believe that it is more difficult for the Nazi today than it is for the queer black woman. This is where you expose the bullshit, because the data clearly shows you the insanely ridiculous uptick in hate crimes or bias incidents against marginalized communities since the election of Donald Trump. But all I ever hear is about, oh, Richard Spencer and Ann Coulter got shut down. But who cares about that when you have over 1,100 incidents, 400 of which took place on college campuses just since November of 2016. They got as high as getting 87 reports a day from college campuses. But let's be concerned because, you know, 2 conservative right-wing white nationalists were shut down across the country, but never mind about the 400 incidents of hate crimes that took place against marginalized groups. This according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. If you're really concerned about that, if you're, listen, ignorance is not an excuse in this, because you purport to be the type of person that is uber concerned about the condition of free speech. Motherfucker, you should be looking at all the instances of people being silenced by hate crimes. You should know it. You should know it. Shout out to my dude, Dalton Crossway. I haven't heard from my man. He was like one of the original Progressive Army members hanging out in the chat room, man, all day. Glad to have you, man. But I can't put Chelsea Manning on my ticket because she would have to be she'd have to be on the front of the ticket. It'd have to be Manning Dixon. I want to be, if Donald Trump is president, shit, I could be president. Anyway, but back to these people who are so concerned about the civil liberties and the free speech of Nazis, but I haven't seen a single one of them talk about the number of African-American professors who have had their lives threatened because they talk about black liberation in historical context. And there you have it. And so this professor, he thought it was the height of hypocrisy and irony that the Texas A&M University actually is a university that allows concealed carry to classes because they believe that it makes a safer environment, despite the fact that he's getting death threats from students as well as community figures. But having an historical context, a historically nuanced conversation about the existence of violence in black liberation throughout history, somehow that creates a dangerous environment, but not the fact that these students, some of which have given death threats, are free to carry concealed weapons. Okay, Avery, I would take the VP ticket. Manning Dixon, 2020. Manning Dixon, 2020. Why? Because she's cooler than everybody else, and she's done so much for the country. And me, I'm fucking smarter than everybody else on Donald Trump's cabinet combined. All right. Sorry for all the cussing tonight, folks. Not sorry. There was another story. I am like 100% going off of pure memory today, simply because of I've been running strong since like 4 this morning, and it's been busy all that time. So thanks for you guys being here, hanging out with me. One other story that I wanted to talk about, which is really where I think our focus needs to remain. Our focus has to not be distracted. I don't think Russia is a distraction at this point. But if we're going to talk about Russia, we 100% are going to have to multitask and talk about the fact that Mitch McConnell is dead set on passing this health care. I mean, 100%. He's so committed to passing this legislation that's going to hurt 22 million more Americans than Obamacare already leaves off insurance, according to a data calculated by Matt Brunig over the People's Policy workshop. So, I'm sorry, I don't have the title of his of his think tank right, but Matt Brunig calculated that over the next 10 years, you're going to see potentially 539,000, almost 540,000 Americans who will die from not having access to health care as a result of the AHCA, the American Health Care Act. And so it amazes me that they are so committed to, I want to say killing poor people and the elderly, because that's the sum total of it. 540,000 people over the next 10 years killed because of a lack of access to health care, because of the repeal of Obamacare. I'm amazed that they are so committed to killing the poor and the elderly. And, in addition to that, or if you want to not be so hyperbolic, they're really just so committed to undermining President Obama's legacy. It's an ego thing. They can't believe this black man came in there and actually got something done so big, albeit incomplete. He got something done so big that he had his name named after it, and that it was going to, his posterity was going to, his legacy was going to carry on for generations with the name Obamacare. And they literally are in a position where they are rejecting a conservative piece of legislation. I mean, Obamacare, if you want to be associated with conservative economic policies with regard to health care, then fine, Obamacare. But they're so committed to their hatred of Barack Obama that they're willing to reject a conservative piece of legislation that's based on conservative principles, all in favor of nothing, of hurting more Americans. And they're so committed to that they're willing to take off 2 weeks of their vacation time, because God forbid they stay and work the same amount of days as the average American, right? But they're so committed that they're knocking off 2 weeks of their 2 weeks of their vacation time in order to come and pass this healthcare law. And so this is why it's important that even if we talk about Russia, we've got to freaking multitask. We have to multitask because the Congress, the Senate, rather, is getting ready to pass this legislation, and they are set on doing it. And so we have to multitask to the point where we call our senators right now, today, tomorrow. Leave them, call your senator. Let them know that you are their constituent. And if they support this bill, then 100% you're going to do everything within your power to make sure that they are no longer a senator. We have to make the price, the pain point for this legislation so high that they walk away from it. And if they're stupid enough to actually go ahead and implement it, well, then they have an entire horde of people who are now going to oppose them. And so we absolutely cannot allow ourselves to get so swept away by the Russia narrative that we don't do our due diligence as citizens and call our senators. Call your senator tomorrow, send them an email, send them a fax, be polite, be firm. Don't say anything that's going to get the Secret Service or the Senate security, the Congressional Police Force, Congressional Police Department, whatever the title of that them people is. Don't say something stupid and get them to come check you out. Say something very direct, succinct, that if they support this bill, then you were going to oppose them, not only financially, but with your time. And we have to make sure that we make good on this, because if they actually pass this legislation, it's going to hurt a lot of people. But you know what we can do? We can hurt them when it comes time for election. We can hurt them politically and make sure that they never recover from the fact that they took us from a bad situation to a worse situation. They took us from a situation that is already built on Republican principles, just because they hate Barack Obama. Listen, I don't have a significant amount. I'm lying. I do love Obama. You guys know. You have my show. I love Obama. I understand exactly who he is, though, right? And because I know who he is, I'm very sober about Obama. All right, and I'm very sober about his failings, and I'm very sober about his role serving as the American president. So in general, I'm not really a fan of Barack Obama, but damn, are you really going to be so jealous of a man that you're willing to take the 23 million people he's not covering and add another 22 million? That's the most fascinating thing to me. If anything, they could have easily said, and once it passed, they could have easily said that, oh my God, I just came up with the greatest way the Republicans, I need to get paid for this. Republicans could have taken 100% credit for Obamacare, and and it would have been the truth. Republicans, instead of trying to do everything they can to hurt 22 million more Americans, all they had to do was say, you do realize, President Obama, that this was based on the Heritage Foundation. You do realize, President Obama, that this was based on Romney Care. This is what Republicans could have done. They could have said, this proves that conservative principles work. And that would have gutted the Democratic Party and exposed them. And then the Democrats would have had to run left, right? But instead of doing that, instead of taking credit for it, because it's theirs, Obamacare is theirs. They could have co-opted, they could have whitewashed and co-opted Obama's legacy just like they do Martin Luther King's legacy, just like they do Jesus's legacy. They continuously take credit for stuff and whitewash it and turn it around for their favor. But they have such a myopic view of opposition that instead of taking credit based on their principles, they now have turned the corner where they don't have any further right to go except for, like, how many people can we fucking kill over the next 10 years? 539,000. Like, I get not liking somebody, but you hate somebody so much that you could have you hate somebody so much that you're betraying your principles. I mean, damn. Like, all right, let's see what else. It's already 10 o'clock. I did start about 10 minutes late, but you know, we might can end early. Let's take a look at a couple of questions. I still have at least 5 more stories that I could go through, but you know, it's been a pretty robust show already. I think so. Everyone's talking about healthcare. I definitely want you guys to call. Like, seriously, once you get done tomorrow, when you're done with the show and you're done listening, hang up, email your senator, and let them know, fax your senator, and seriously let them know that if they support this bill, if they vote for this bill, you're going to do everything within your economic and your voting power to make sure that they never bumps the Senate, that they never serve in American politics ever again. Let them know that they are creating a lifelong political enemy, and I don't care what party they're in. I don't care if they're Democrat. I don't care if they're Republican. You are going to create a lifelong enemy, and I will follow your career wherever it goes within our state. So long as I'm a constituent of yours, I will follow your career and always support the opposition because you did something directly to harm not only me, but my neighbor. Do that. Use that language. Don't threaten them. And let them know let them know we don't have time for any games. All right, folks, that's about it. You know, here's a little something. I'm almost done. I'm still in production. So I am going to have the show up and running. I'm setting it up from here down in Atlanta. I'll give you more details about it, but I'm in Atlanta for at least the next 3 weeks. Atlanta, holla at me. What's going on in the ATL? I know a lot of what's going on in the ATL. But anyway, the show will be broadcast from here. I should have the entire set up with light, you know, the type of production that you're used to us bringing. We should have that ready for you, if not this week, by the next week. But I'm broadcasting from Content Studios in Atlanta, Georgia, on the south side. Anyway, see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to do everything I can to have phone calls tomorrow. And I do forget that you could call in and leave voicemails. But if you want to leave a voicemail based on anything we discussed today, do that, and we'll play it in tomorrow's show. I think that's all I've got time for. I will see you tomorrow.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.